Welcome to Digital Momentum. I'm Mike Ryan, Head of Retail Insights at Smarter E-commerce. This show offers conversational interviews with leaders in digital marketing, digital transformation, and e-commerce growth. Today I'm joined by Marika Baltscheffsky, CMO at Meds, an online pharmacy and a rising star in Sweden's highly competitive beauty and personal care e-commerce vertical. Marika, too, is a rising star with a truly impressive international resume, including experience in creative strategy at Digitus and performance media at Google. I've only talked with Marika via email so far, and there are so many questions I'm dying to ask her. So let's get into it. So today we have Marika Baltscheffsky on the show. She's CMO at Meds in a Swedish online pharmacy. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Would you get us started with a quick intro? What are your skills? What are some themes that interest you?
Quick intro. My name is Marika. I'm from Stockholm, Sweden. I spent about 10 years abroad before coming back to Sweden a couple of years ago. My skills and what interests me is probably people. Both. It's just the answer to both questions. I'm pretty good at reading people and understanding what motivates people and get them to tick. That's also my main interest, I think. Yeah, that's been guiding my professional, my career.
Well, that's awesome. I think that's a really valuable skill to have and a good way to stay motivated in terms of marketing and understanding your audience. So speaking of which, I saw that you received degrees in psychology and sociology from Brown University.
Yeah.
So why did you choose those topics to study? I mean, I guess it's partly self-explanatory if you're interested in people.
Yeah, purely out of interest. And that's also the reason I left Sweden to study in the States and get a liberal arts degree. In Sweden, the option here, I was accepted into Stockholm School of Economics. I knew I was very interested in business, but the thought of studying economics alone for 3 years was kind of my nightmare. It showed. I'm very curious. I wanted to kind of explore more topics, and psychology was something that really fascinated me. I wanted to learn about it, but I never had the ambition to become a psychologist. So with this degree, I could add courses in business and entrepreneurship and dance and whatnot, but focus on something that was really fascinating to me. And sociology, I added on that just because I chose so many electives within that sphere, mostly because it was so interesting to me, all the differences I noticed moving to America between the Swedish and American cultures and behaviors. So purely based on my interest and passion.
That's really great to hear. And yeah, I think that's one of the, I like that liberal arts model, the kind of rounded degree. And so you must have found these degrees valuable in your work. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. I feel, understanding people is valuable in basically any work you do, where you're almost always dealing with people in some fashion, right? And I remember when I joined my first job out of college at Digitus in New York, our then CEO, I remember he said something about how in advertising, especially now in this digital era, it's changing so fast. But what stays true always is people. Right. And how people work and understanding your audience and understanding how you connect with people. So it's been so valuable to study that. And that both generally, but also very specifically, there's some small little tricks on how the mind works that I always carry with me in what I do, both professionally and personally.
Yeah, definitely. And you were at Digitus for 4 years and I think a couple different roles, but including like creative strategist. So how did those early career experiences shape you and your outlook on the agency side?
Shaped me a lot. It was a very good school and like a great place to start your career within marketing, as I worked mostly on the creative side, both as an account executive, so a client lead, the suit, as they're called, and also on the creative side as a strategist. So I really got like the all-rounded view on how agencies, the processes work and how the creatives work versus how the client work, how the client agency relationship worked. And also just a good schooling, like working with clients in New York is kind of tough. So I think I learned a lot just from that with general business acumen and like how to deal with clients and deadlines and projects and budgets and all that. And then after, like later on in my career, just knowing how a big agency like that works, how the different functions within an agency, it's not obvious to those who haven't been in it, I think.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And from there, you were on to Google for 3 years. So
yep.
How did that come about? And actually, did you return to Sweden at this point, or were you situated in like the Dublin office or something?
I was in Dublin for a year. It came about, I was actually had an offer from Google during my senior year at Brown already.
Okay.
They came to a class and did recruiting. But I'm sure a lot of international students in America can relate to the whole visa situation there. So you get to stay for a year after college, but Google, like their policy, they couldn't commit to sponsoring a visa for me after that first year. Whereas Digitas, I had done my internship with the previous year and they kind of they could commit to sponsoring me. So I went to Digitas before Google. That was one of the reasons I did that. But I kept in touch with my recruiter at Google throughout the years. And we kept talking about like all the new experience I had. And like, I always saw myself at some point making the switch over to Google. I'm fascinated with the company and the industry and tech, and always imagined myself more on the marketing side at Google, but ended up on the sales side, which I'm really happy I did. It was thanks to the recruiter. She was like, everything that you've done really adds up well to this particular role. I'm working with agencies and clients on their digital marketing strategies, basically. And I was supposed to do that in the States after 3 years. I was like, okay, I'm making the move now. But then again, and they did sponsor my visa then, but I didn't get the visa. There's like a lottery in America and all that jazz. So I was supposed to go to another office outside of the States for a year and then come back to the States. But during that year, I chose to go to Dublin, which is the headquarters for EMEA, and worked with the Swedish team there. And for the first time, I left Sweden when I was 18. For the first time, I worked with Swedish colleagues, the Swedish market. I was home in Stockholm a lot with work and just really liked the professional experience. Sweden is an interesting market because it's very advanced in both tech and digital marketing and advertising in general and creativity. And of course, like you're a bigger fish in a smaller pond working in Sweden versus America. So instead of going back to the States after a year, I went to the Stockholm office with Google, which is a pretty small office in the sales and marketing department. So that was really fun and got to do really cool stuff there. At the end, I was the commercial lead for YouTube for performance. So how you drove performance marketing using video ads on YouTube. And that was, really cool. I loved working there. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of great stuff in there. Also, I can sympathize with the U.S. visa topic because, I mean, I'm in an international relationship, and that's kind of a big reason about why I came to live in Austria instead of the other way around. But very happy with that.
You find friends within that topic and that problem all over the world. Like, oh, you've also been through the H-1B lottery. Yay.
Yeah, but I'm very, very happy how it all worked out anyhow.
Same thing.
Yeah, so that's really interesting about some of those experiences with Google, and we all know kind of the Google brand by now, like these very colorful offices and this focus on a really outstanding employee experience, and there have even been some movies about it, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So, but what was your experience like? You said you had a great time there. What was it like there at Google in terms of culture and in comparison to an agency environment? In my experience, it is kind of all that it's made up to be. I loved it. I was really impressed with how they've built the culture, how they built the organization when it's so big today, but they still manage to kind of make everyone feel like they're contributing, and you have the smaller teams, you have a really tight-knit culture, you have the really cool transparency where you kind of feel involved, even though you work with marketing on the Google platforms in Sweden, you kind of have insight and feel like a part of the bigger company and all the tech developments they're doing in Mountain View. And so it's fascinating how they've built the company and organizational structure. And I think I learned
just as much as I learned about marketing and digital marketing and data and all that and media for my time at Google, I also have used so much from my time there in like how to motivate teams and build a culture within a company and work with OKRs. And there's so much around that as well that I took from those years. So yeah, I had a great experience, truly.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, it reminds me, you were saying that Sweden, in a way, there was like it's this very mature market, very advanced market, but also it's a smaller market. And so there's this idea of like a big fish in a small pond, which I always think is actually, that often gets said in a kind of dismissive way or something. But I think it's a great situation because it's a recipe for having impact.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's cool that Google's able to kind of, it sounds like they had a similar, even though it's such a large organization, you were able to have a feeling of impact and being a part of it. Yeah,
and I think one of my favorite examples is from the how they do that is from the tech side. How they have satellite smaller offices like Stockholm. They kind of distribute all the different Google products so that satellite smaller offices are in charge of one product, right? That means that even the smaller Stockholm office, the engineers there, they get to build the video conference like the Google Meet. So they get to own that. So they get to build products that are used by billions of people, right? So they kind of make sure that everyone, like they make it attractive to work in even the smaller offices, which is really cool. So that way you have the Google, the soul and the spirit, even in a remote office like Stockholm, and you get talent from all over the world there, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like a super positive experience.
Absolutely.
So now I'm wondering, why did you decide to go in-house, or what attracted you to meds specifically?
It wasn't really like a decision that I wanted to go in-house. I was, first of all, not planning to leave Google that soon, because I did love it there and the work I did and my boss and my team and everything. But I always have had this kind of entrepreneurial spirit and quest. And the founder and CEO of Meds contacted me and kind of provided me this opportunity, which was, it's a really cool vertical, the pharmacy. Sweden is, like we said, a mature market digitally, but with pharmacies, Sweden had a monopoly of pharmacy, only state-owned pharmacies until like 10 years ago. So that vertical is very underdeveloped, but growing rapidly, the fastest growing online vertical of all e-commerce verticals. So there was such an opportunity in the market, and the Meds idea and product and the service I believed in, had never heard it before because it was new. And then as a marketer, I got the chance to build a brand from scratch and work both with brand building and the creative side, which I loved, and also the performance marketing and growth. So I really got to combine what I've been doing both at Digitas and at Google and do it. I mean, I've been a consultant my whole career, and finally be able to do it myself was too good an opportunity to pass on.
Yeah, that sounds like a really great opportunity. So this makes a lot of sense, what you're saying, because Sweden, more mature, it probably has slower e-commerce growth rates compared to other markets, but then this vertical is really where there's some interesting action. That's really cool. And it just sounds like an interesting perspective that you've built by now, having done the agency work, having been on the platform side at Google as a media or ad platform. How do those different perspectives or that combination influence your work at Meds?
Completely, of course. Like everything I do is the sum of my experiences. But I think, like I mentioned, having worked at an agency, knowing how agencies work, how the pricing works, how the processes and the creative teams and all the functions. I mean, I know a lot of in-house like CMOs might like wonder, I mean, do you really need production, a project leader, a project manager, a client manager, and like 5 creatives? But really understanding all the different roles in a project and timelines and how that works has helped me a lot. Although I did make an early decision to not work with agencies that much. Meds was at that point a phase where we had to do it quicker and more scrappy than that. And being informed of how agencies work helped me make that decision, of course. And from Google, I mean, I had never worked with media before I joined Google on the media side. And that I think has been the main part of my role as CMO, has been like negotiating media deals and like working with media all the time. So obviously that helped me a ton, and understanding such a big part of a fast growing company is the growth and the performance marketing and sales. And like having worked with that at Google, I mean, of course, it's been very helpful. A lot. I was shocked how many performance and Google marketing specialists and agencies there are out there that are really not specialists at the Google marketing platforms at all. So that has really helped me kind of make sure that we had the best in class in place. So I could focus, like I could just like make sure that was a well-oiled machine and up and running in the right way. And then I could focus on the brand building. So I kind of knew a lot. I knew a little about a lot, which was a good place for me to be in that role at that time. Mm-hmm. Sounded like a really uninteresting answer, but maybe you can edit something out of that.
That was not an uninteresting answer at all. It sounds like a really good place to be in at the company at that time. And you've talked about the growth a couple times now, and we talked about the maturity of the Swedish market. So let's return to those themes together a little bit. I mean, what I understand about the market in Sweden is that it tends to be rather concentrated, with a few players owning an awfully large share of revenue, and particularly in pharmacy. I mean, the numbers that I was running, I was like, could this even be right that so much revenue is owned by 5 or so companies? But it makes a lot of sense knowing that there was a state monopoly before, and that this is a recently opened vertical. Yep. But still, this is so interesting, because even in such a fast growing vertical, meds is growing faster. I think you're growing really fast
by many times.
Would you maybe talk to us a little bit about that market, about the growth that you've seen recently in the last years, and what it's like breaking into a competitive cluster like that, this really concentrated market? Yeah,
I mean, that was the whole, the vertical was the reason I left Google, right? Because it's so interesting to me. Because of the monopoly, there were less than, a few players having it's a big market, right? It's like a 6 billion euro market, the pharmacy alone in Sweden. Mm-hmm. And of that, only when I started meds a few years ago, it was around 10% of that was online sales. Now I think it's over 30%, around 30% of that. So it's growing rapidly, the shift to online, and it's lagging behind other verticals. And Sweden is in the forefront with digital prescriptions, medical prescriptions, digital ID. So the fact that you could actually have like a digital consultation from a doctor, and we have a partnership with Kry, Livy, one of the biggest ones in Europe, and then get a prescribed drug in your phone, click a button, and meds will have it sent to you. You log in with a digital ID, and you get it home within a couple hours. Mm-hmm. So it's very mature, and like the technical aspects are there, but there's a great barrier to market as well for new companies, because it's still heavily regulated, even though it's not a monopoly. Mm-hmm. So all of these factors add up to like the potential is huge, and like you mentioned, the state-owned pharmacy is the biggest one by far, right? But they're mostly focused on, or have mostly been focused on, physical stores. Then there was only one pure digital player for a long time, and they still had, when I joined, 80% of the digital market. Of the digital revenue. And then we have, now we're still only 3 pure online players in this big market. So there was just this great potential here, an opportunity to come in and run fast and kind of create this own niche within the vertical, because all of the other pharmacies also are very similar. Mm. If you go in Stockholm and enter pharmacy or go to their website, they all kind of try to mimic the state-owned pharmacy when they started, right? So they all are like green and blue, white coats, had the same look and feel. And here we had opportunity to really be the challenger, really do something different, be more modern, and stand out and be distinct. So that was the main approach, was just, let's just not try to do what everyone else is doing, because they're already so big and have completely like different budgets, but we're going to take on the challenger role and run a different direction. And it's been working really well so far. I think my first year, we grew with almost 400% in revenue. The year after that, 150%. And we're looking on 100% growth this year again. So it's rapid growth for sure.
That's quite impressive. And that's really interesting because I already want to ask you a little bit about the brand topic. I mean, my impression of a lot of online pharmacies, and here maybe I'll speak more toward like the Austrian or the German market where I'm a consumer, is that they're often kind of just their main proposition has to do with price in the end. And I feel like the brands are not that much in the forefront. And it seems like maybe there's an opportunity there to differentiate more and take the pressure off of pricing. But it also sounds like what you described with these digital IDs and digital prescriptions, it sounds too like the proposition for an online pharmacy in Sweden might be more around convenience than just pricing alone. What's your take on all that?
I think it's definitely both. And if you look at like all the market research on what drives the choice of where you do your pharmacy shopping, it is those two factors. It is price and it is convenience. If you go to a physical pharmacy, you go to the one that's between your job and your apartment. You don't go out of your way to go to a different brand. Same thing goes often online, but it's very online, even more price driven often because you can compare the prices in a different way.
Yeah.
So that's definitely an aspect to it. So meds has always been like, our position has always been that we're cheap and we're competitive with the cheapest, but we're not going to have like always the cheapest price guarantee, but we're going to have the best experience. So we do have, I think more than half of our customers are from the Stockholm area. And that's where we can offer the delivery within an hour or two, which is kind of unmatched because our competitors have their warehouses further away than a couple hours from Stockholm. So that's been like our greatest selling point that we've been pushing into marketing. And then it's been, like you mentioned, the branding. Like branding has been huge because the other online players they really had focused their brands on the convenience and pricing alone, on the selling points, and not like build a brand personality and kind of a liking. So that's been a big thing for us for sure.
I mean, one branding topic or a campaign that I want to discuss with you. We can talk about other campaigns too, but I stumbled across this one when I was researching meds, and I got the feeling that it was an important kind of early win for meds in terms of branding. And this was I'll rely on a translation here, but the Love Meds YouTube campaign. And I won't be able to pronounce this guy's name correctly, I'm sure, but it looks like Måns Zelmerlöw.
You don't know him? He was the winner of Eurovision. You're supposed to live in Europe.
I'm still working on my integration. I can't quite get into Eurovision yet. I'm not quite there yet. But I mean, I'll just describe this quickly so bearing in mind that it's like a music video or a blend of a commercial and a music video, and it's in Swedish, so I could not understand what he was saying, but I was laughing out loud. It was really hilarious because he's like this kind of like pop star sex symbol. I would maybe, if I would reach for an American comparison, I'd say kind of an Adam Levine type figure, maybe, or maybe I'm dating myself with that reference. I'm not sure.
No, that's pretty spot on.
But then he's just like not taking himself seriously at all. It's a really funny video. He's really ass naked on a horse in some different parts of this video, and it's really played for laughs, I think. And it's got like 625,000 views from what I saw on YouTube. So also you were talking about media buying earlier. So I don't know if that was on other channels too, but can you discuss how this came about and what it meant for the brand?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it's got one of the versions have 625,000 views, but it reached almost, I think, like 20% of the Swedish population or something like that, only on our YouTube channel.
Wow.
So yeah, it had a huge viral effect. Well, the story is actually, Meds was less than a year old when I joined. I joined over the summer. I just left Google and YouTube, and where I was, as I mentioned, the commercial lead for YouTube for performance. So I had been really trying to consult agencies and companies on how to maximize the effect on their YouTube advertising, right? And here I was just joining Meds, and I had the opportunity to kind of do it myself. Yeah. Like, actually, what I've been telling everyone is the best practice. Let's do that. Because when you consult someone and tell them, like, here are the best practices, it's going to go through 10 layers and become something else, right? Here, it's like, let's actually try this. Because I only had a few weeks to prepare for a shoot, and we had nothing. We didn't have an agency. We didn't have like a strategy, no production company, no creative. We had TV media bought for the fall. Okay. And we had a date booked for shooting with this Måns Zelmerlöw, the celebrity. So it was just like, okay, you have like a week to do something. So I was like, let's just try. And there's this thing called the ABCDs of YouTube creative, I think, of creative of YouTube advertising. I was like, let's just take this list of what works with YouTube ads, right? Mm-hmm. So this is team with YouTube, a team called Unskippable Labs. And they've gathered data from thousands of YouTube ads around the world and really been able to distinguish what works and what doesn't. Yep. What drives awareness, what drives conversions, and what doesn't. And it goes down to nitty-gritty stuff like this. There's like a checklist that says like, yeah, celebrities work, music works, humor works, and like really nitty-gritty stuff like start the commercial with a close-up. Mm-hmm. And that's what we did, right? And like start with like, don't send signals like it's an advertisement. Do it like content and really create these like what the fuck moments as well. So we really just checked off this box, and it's a super random video. And like I said, it's some people find it hilarious. Some people hated it. Some people reported it to an entity here as being sexist towards men. It just created this, people cared about it. So that's like the big thing, right? We had a small media budget. We created this thing that everyone had feelings about. So people were posting it online. They were talking about it in podcasts. It was on like primetime television. They showed video or shots from it. So it was huge, of course. And we did brand awareness tests on YouTube, brand lift studies on it. And it broke the record in Northern Europe for most effective in raising brand awareness ad. Wow. So it really did, like, using the best practices from the YouTube team really checked out and worked for us.
Well, congratulations. And I think you can take some more credit there too than just, following best practices. It's an amazing video, or an amazing success. Let me say it like that.
It was a great success. And we were basically unknown. And after that, people had noticed us for the first time. And then we can build on that and kind of work on the brand, having that wind in our tails. Mm-hmm.
A follow-up question on that about the demographics, because if I had to guess, you'll know this, but if I had to guess, I would say that the average user on an online pharmacy might skew toward, let's say, toward middle-aged female or something in this direction. Although, of course, all kinds of people shop on there. And then I'm wondering what the average demographic on that video is. But then when you say that 20% of the population saw it, I guess it was almost everyone. But yeah, I'm just wondering, do you have a sense, because it's probably really great to try to break out into some other demographics too. Do you think it was a success in that regard?
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Because the spread, it was actually on the front page news on the biggest evening newspapers in Sweden. So it was literally on the walls in the city. So it did get a big spread. And also on YouTube, you get older populations there. The media that we bought skewed older. Mm-hmm. And in Sweden, you will reach more 50-year-olds on YouTube than on TV. So we really were able to reach a lot of people. Then the content, Måns Zelmerlöw is a good celebrity to use because he's also popular with middle-aged and even above. So it has a wide follower base. So I think we were able to reach a pretty wide group. Yeah. Then if you liked it or not, it was probably different, but yeah.
Yeah. Are there any other campaigns that you want to mention, by the way, or?
I think we worked a lot with influencers as well. Mm-hmm. So that's been a big part of our kind of our scrappy brand building, because it takes less production cost, right? And we always work directly with influencers and work with influencers that we know already are customers and are fans. Like we have Meds is one of those companies that have fans, right? Like people who get used to having like something delivered within an hour or two. You get like obsessed with it. You want to tell your friends about it. So using influencer marketing to kind of reach the younger demographic, but up until like 45, you have influencers successfully reaching those demographics, particularly women, and that is our biggest audience. That's been really great for us as well. So we've used a lot of, like I mentioned in the beginning, we've done very different media buys than our competitors. Something that I noticed when I researched the verticals and the competitors before I took the job was that the competitors kept spending more and more on television, on TV ads, even though our ratings were dropping. So you reach fewer and fewer people. They would spend more and more on TV, and they would actually spend less on mobile advertisement, which was strange, as that's where all the growth came from. So we really gone a different direction from start. We had that TV buy my first week, so it already planned before I joined, but then we've done like mostly digital, a lot of YouTube, successfully so, a lot of influencer marketing, podcasts, new media, and also out of home, so traditional media in that sense. But yeah, very different media buys.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think that's a super smart strategy to just differentiate. So there's sometimes a perceived gap between creative and data, but I'm pretty sure you wouldn't agree with that. Could you talk about your approach to data and how this informs creative and vice versa?
Yeah, I think having kind of dabbled in the creative strategy role with the agency, I'm always like, data is always good. And if you just present it and use it the right way, it's a springboard for creativity, I think. And it doesn't have to be, it's all about, again, how you present it and how you use it. It doesn't have to be the enemy of the creative process. It can really be feeding it. I want to go back to the whole thing about best practices on YouTube and kind of using the data you can get there. That Måns campaign that we did, we had 10 versions of that video. So we had different shots and we had, if you noticed, some scenes in the longer music video of 2-3 minutes, he's on a field working out in like workout gear. We had a whole version just of that we targeted to people who do like to train and work out. We had a version when he's in the music studio that we targeted to his fans and to music fans. So we did a lot of different versions, so you can target to people's interests and just like using all the data you have to get people to spend more time with your advertising or your advertisement. That's correlated, right? Time spent with your brand is going to correlate with awareness and preference and how much you like you. So really just tailoring the content. If there's data on what works, what's going to grab people's attention on YouTube, with a YouTube ad, why would you not use that? And that's data, right? Or what a creative strategist would call insights. So like using that in the creative process, I think I can't see the harm in it. It's, to me, it's just fun and effective, as that campaign proved.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned before that although the state monopoly is not in place anymore within pharmaceuticals, that there's or pharmacies, that there's still some regulation in place. It's not that it's been deregulated by any means. And yeah, it strikes me that marketing and advertising medical products or medicines can present real ethical challenges. So what are some of like the regulatory or policy hurdles that you often face, maybe around targeting or what you're allowed to advertise?
Yeah.
And from the other side, if that's the external side, from the internal side, what are like the values or principles that Meds brings to this space to guide you?
Yeah, of course, there's a lot of regulations. In Sweden, we can't get prescribed medications at all. Mm-hmm. So you can't target on any kind of health issues or health information. We can't market, as I mentioned, prescribed drugs. A lot of the over-the-counter drugs you can't prescribe that include certain substances. But we mostly market our service, right? Because meds, we're not the drug company, we are the distributor. So we market how we can get these drugs to you within a couple hours. So it hasn't been, it can be a pain because like our product feed, Google or Facebook marketing might get a red flag somewhere because there's a substance somewhere or a word somewhere. So that might be a pain, but it's not like it's a challenge in our brand marketing per se. Yeah. I would say, and I think that's probably a good thing. Like I don't see it as an issue in my daily job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, about like this idea of, are there like specific company values that Meds has in place, or anything that you want to mention there?
Yeah, I mean, we want to be of service to the community and to our customers. So we're all about doing what's good for our customers. And that is not pushing a specific drug on someone. That's just like whatever you need, we can get it to you. So again, like the regulations in place for marketing is very much in line with how we want to market ourselves anyways. So
yeah, well, that sounds like a good fit.
Yeah.
In 2019, you were highlighted as a talent to watch by the Stockholm Marketing Association. And something that there was like a little write-up and something that I really enjoyed. You discussed how none of us can be the best at everything and how important it is to ask for help and to give help. Could you share a little bit more about that theme? And also, I mean, I don't know specifically how big the team is at Meds, the marketing team. I have the feeling that it's smaller. So maybe in that context too.
Yeah. Firstly, like when I took this job, it was so clear to me, like I'm coming from YouTube and Google, I was probably one of the better CMOs in Stockholm at YouTube advertisement, right? Mm-hmm. But I needed help with buying TV ads, for example. That was like one of the first things I had to do. So what I did was that I called up a friend that I had met through my time at Google. He was the head of broadcasting at a big media agency. I just called him up and say, hey, can you help me? Can you teach me about buying TV? Because I don't get it. And I want to be the best at it. And we sat down and started sharing knowledge, and it went beyond TV and YouTube, of course. And then we started adding more acquaintances and other CMOs to this group. We ended up being like 16 or 17 CMOs from different verticals and companies, a Slack channel, and meetups before COVID, of course. And that's just been the most valuable forum for me. Like we've all, whatever question you have, throw it out there. And everything from like how you work with distribution to which agencies you like for a specific project. And sometimes even very transparent sharing like media prices, what you pay for a certain placement. Because a lot in this industry is so traditional still and relationship based. And I kind of was pulling my hair out because it's like whatever you do, you always feel like, I don't know how to say this in like a diplomatic way, but it was just nice to have peers to kind of bounce ideas off of and kind of sanity check whatever you were doing. And we made sure to have like no competitors in the group, so we could really be transparent with what we were doing and and how we were doing it. And yeah, because the CMO role is so broad today and it keeps getting broader. It's growth and it's branding. And I mean, it's hiring, it's building a team. It's most of us are in the management board of the company, the management team. So there's no way you can be good at everything, right? And I think having like being humble for that and also seeing that as an opportunity to meet people and kind of share your knowledge and that's just been so helpful in my job. And the Meds team is small, but when I started, it was just me and a content creator. So we had to do everything from scratch, right? Wow. So everything from like learning CRM to growth, to branding, to media buying, to hiring people. And now we're 6 of us. So definitely bigger, but we still have to get help from the outside. And without having the resources to have like an agency and third party in place for every function, there was so much we needed to learn, and people are happy to help. So I'm happy to help others with what I know, and others are happy to help me. So it's been like an extended resource for the Meds team for sure.
That's really cool. I love the idea of starting up this kind of peer Slack channel. And
yeah,
Yeah.
And I mean, that's something that many organizations charge a lot of money to like be a part of our network of tech CMOs, la la la, and like come to this meetup. But like, why don't you just do it yourself?
Yeah, exactly. I've seen these models in place before, and in this age of technological means, there's nothing to stop people. It's just about connecting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate that. And there's a couple of questions I like to ask every guest. One of those is, how would you define growth, and what does good growth look like to you, and how do you identify unhealthy growth? And I think that this will be super interesting to hear too when you hear about numbers like 400% growth and stuff like that too. What's your take on this topic?
How to define growth is so much like on a case-by-case basis, right? Like, first of all, how does your company define growth? What's healthy growth for me and for meds might not be healthy growth for another company, right? Mm-hmm. Are you a company who you need to boost sales? Are you going to try to sell your company? Are you going to do an IPO? Or are you looking to do like very long-term growth? For meds, we wanted to grow faster than the competition, right? We wanted to grow to get market share. Yeah. But it was always important to me that it was what I call sustainable growth. Mm-hmm. So I needed, because it's an interesting topic and a great question, because you can always buy revenue, right? You can always buy conversions. So growth in itself, revenue growth, doesn't really say much, because if you throw money at it, you can always get money back. But for me, it was important that even though we had to earn market share, I wanted it to be sustainable growth in that, I mean, all the other metrics that we're looking at to go in the right direction. Be that customer acquisition cost, that has to go down. Our brand awareness, I wanted to go up. So you couldn't spend all the money on just acquisition and performance. Customer lifetime value and share of returning customers. And there's so many metrics to look at. And for me, we wanted to have very aggressive growth, revenue growth, but also have all of these sub metrics go in the right direction. And that's what we managed to do. And that's what I probably have been the most proud of. We have seen really good traction in all the other metrics. So we go towards profitability while having this aggressive growth. So that's healthy growth for us, but that might not be healthy growth for other companies. So I've been surprised with how many companies, especially maybe more established companies and larger companies, don't have that in place. Like they only look at, for example, revenue growth, and not only within the marketing sphere, but like unit economics with the whole company. Like we can throw money at performance marketing and get revenue up, but our logistics might not be able to keep up, which means that they're going to take a bigger cut of the unit economics. So it's not going to be healthy growth for the company, even though the marketing metrics look good, right? So that's healthy for us. It has to be growth that we can manage, so that our unit economics cost per order go down for us while we earn market share.
Well, I love that answer. Really, everything about that. But just a quick question that came to mind right at the end here. You were talking about outpacing logistics. Did you face troubles around that in COVID? Were there problems?
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. That's what I expected.
Sure. No, I mean, COVID happened and it was March 2020. We were still only 2 in our marketing team. We had 2 more coming in. So I was like spending my time on recruiting. All of a sudden, overnight, basically, our sales quadrupled. So within weeks, we doubled our staff in every team, basically. So we had to kill marketing for a while, performance marketing, to not, we couldn't buy conversions because we couldn't keep up in the warehouse. But what we did, we could shift those dollars and that time into doing, a lot of companies paused also their brand marketing. We kind of doubled up on that during this time. So we did a lot of marketing with like soft messages, like we're there for you, whatever you need, home delivery, all that. But kind of certainly had to hold back for a while on the performance marketing because we couldn't keep up with the sales. But we were really quick in ramping up though as a company. So as I mentioned, we doubled the staff within weeks and we're able to get back on track very quickly.
Well, that's really smart. That idea of like, even if we're going to pause performance campaigns or slow down on acquisition for a minute because there's more demand than supply, whatever the case might be, that you don't pause the branding. That's so key, because branding is a long-term thing, and you can't let that get shaken by some fluctuations in the short term.
Yeah. No, definitely. And also in that moment of time, the brand media was a lot cheaper to buy because so many paused. So we did out of home. The digital media like YouTube and Facebook, the CPM dropped significantly. You could get crazy deals of traditional media. So we did a lot of branding. And circling back really quickly to the question about how to use data in creative processes, what we did then, for example, was that people were like, is it okay to go out and do marketing now in this terrible time, right? So we did within the same day as Sweden went out with the regulations of staying at home and self-isolate, we pushed a YouTube ad that simply said, stay home, we're coming to you, in a big heart. And we did brand preference and studies on that, and saw that it really drove awareness and likability and preference. So knowing that, within a day, we could be the first ones out with this message, and then we could buy print and outdoor with the same kind of message because we had tested it online. So we could invest in that then. So that was one way that we were really agile. We switched our marketing spend to branding, and we tested a message digitally before we pushed it out in different channels within days. So it was really good.
That's amazing. And it just speaks to that volume and speed of feedback and information that you can capture from online, and then just activating that in other channels. I love that story. And speaking of, you mentioned that the company doubled in size really fast. So what are like the workforce skills and the cultural attributes that you look for when you're hiring? What do digital companies need in their people to outpace the market?
I think you'd need, for my team, what I needed was just people that complemented each other really well. So I made sure that I had like 4 roles to fill maybe, and I didn't do it at the same time. I did them one by one so that I could map them all together to kind of do a team that had the perfect overlap and complemented each other in our skills. In general, what I'm always looking for is the intelligence and the curiosity. You need curious people that can grow with the company. Meds is growing so quickly. It's not going to be the same company in a year that it is now, even in 6 months. So we can't just hire for a specific role and what that role has to do today. You have to hire for the company. And this is something that I learned when I did interviews at Google. How they hire is something that I've brought with me to Meds, and kind of what you're looking for in the interview, what kind of questions you can ask. It's just about like people who take initiative, self-starters, team players who can like get their hands dirty, no prestige in the team. That's something that I look for. And then for the company, as a digital company, what you really need in place is, of course, like the data, data people, because that's not me. And that's something that was the first thing I said when I started, was like, I need someone to keep track of my data, because that's not going to be me. And without that, everything's going to be subpar. So that's like the key role. And then build around that with people that complement each other. So you have both the creative and the analytical and the generalist and a specialist. So try to get a good mix.
Yeah, well, I think that's great, that like honesty and setting the right expectation when about, that data is not from my side, but it's going to be super important to what I do.
Yeah.
And this idea about curiosity, it's one of my favorite attributes, or I even consider almost like a personal virtue. Like to me, curiosity,
I agree.
It's just what fuels learning, and that's what we all need so bad. And that combination of raw intelligence and curiosity makes for really high potential individuals.
Yeah, totally agree.
Well, I've just got one last question for you. What's next in digital marketing, or which trends are you watching? Are there any popular themes or strategies that you feel are either overhyped or underhyped?
Watching a lot of how the different targeting methods, I think, is really interesting and unique, and how again, you can keep working with data in the branding part of marketing. That's something I'm always watching and want to keep learning about, because it's changing so quickly and all what you can do. Something that we dabbled in with Meds and that is live shopping and video, like live shopping and video. I think that might be both overhyped and underhyped, if that makes sense. Like, I'm really curious to watch and learn how that's going to evolve. I think it's in its beginning, in the first phases, and I think a lot of things are going to happen in that sphere. Video is always going to be strong channel, and how you can use that more integrated in e-commerce. I think that's something I'm going to keep close watch on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really curious about the live shopping and that stuff too, because you see these headlines and articles about how big that market is in Asia, and that we're maybe sleeping on it, or that it's what's next. And I think, it probably is going to get big, but I also think that there are cultural or sociological differences between these markets and these people as well, and it remains to be seen, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm also like, it's kind of counterintuitive to me because, like I said, we've done it quite a bit with meds, and what I'm more curious of is the video aspect of it than the live aspect of it. What we've done is that we see that half of all the views and all the conversions come from after the live session, right?
Interesting.
And that's where the whole world has gone. In other medias, it's gone from the live aspect to on demand, right? So I think that for me, I would think that the live aspect of live shopping is not going to be as important as the video aspect. So more like video integration of everything e-commerce, I think, is the thing to watch. Whereas it might not necessarily always be live, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. I guess there's actually one final question. Are there any projects or people or companies that you want to plug?
Well, I can say what I want to plug though is like the marketing. It's all about the people, like the team and the people, and that's probably what I'm most proud of with my time at Meds is the team that I built. Yeah, and we touched upon it, but we have like 5 people in the team that are so incredible, and the amount of output that we've gotten from the very slim resources that we've had is incredible. And that's just all thanks to these people and what you mentioned, the smarts combined with the curiosity that makes the marketing coordinator cut video ads and be a producer, and like everyone's just like doing so much and such great stuff. So just a huge shout out to the Meds marketing team.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Thank you for listening. Join us next time for an interview with Mihai Popescu, Head of Digital Marketing at Esprit. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please consider sharing it with coworkers, friends, or within your professional network. We really appreciate it. This podcast is produced by Smarter E-commerce. To learn more, visit smarter-ecommerce.com.